Brilliant. Welcome to this meeting, the final meeting for the Central Otago District Council for this triennium. We move firstly to apologies, and we have an apology for lateness from Councillor Cooney. No other apologies to note. I'll move that apology be accepted. Tamer will second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Move now to public forum. We have a number of people joining us for public forum today. So just to tell you the rules all at once, you have 5 minutes speaking time, then there will be questions from there. So first up, we have Glenn Sari and Sarah Irvine from Queenstown Airport talking about the 10-year strategic plan. Feel free to come up to the table. Kia ora, welcome.
Kia ora, Mayor and councillors. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to join you this morning. So what I wanted to do very briefly was just to give you an update on our 10-year strategic plan, which has been some time in gestation, and we released it publicly last Thursday, so it's hot off the press. So if I just move on to this slide here. So one of the things we thought about very deeply is what is the purpose of Queenstown Airport beyond obviously the obvious, and what are we trying to strive to achieve? So our mission is to proudly connect our home to New Zealand and the world, and when we think of our home, we think of Queenstown Lakes, Upper Clutha, Central Otago is what we think of as our home and our catchment and the people we serve. We've got a bold vision to be an innovative airport that people love to travel through and the community takes pride in. I don't think we can claim to be all of those things just yet, but a vision by definition is an aspiration. So we are very committed to lifting the bar in terms of the way the airport operates and it serves the community. We've reset our values across the bottom there. They look very simple, they are. And our experience is that if you make these very relatable in the way people work and behave when they come to work, hopefully we can bring it all together. So this slide might look a bit familiar to you. The Queenstown Airport, this is, we believe we are the region's airport. These are the communities that we serve. And I'm sure many of you are fairly regular users of the airport. But what I thought would be useful to do is just to provide a couple of statistics. The catchment that we had in the hatched area on the previous page, in 2048 is projected by Statistics New Zealand to be 100,000 people. 70% of that 100,000 live in the QLDC region and 30,000 in the CODC region. To put that into context, New Plymouth is about the same size, and that's smaller than Nelson, Tasman. So when you consider the level of air services that presently exist in Queenstown Airport, with several flights a day to 4 ports on the eastern seaboard of Australia and beyond, and a very deep jet schedule to Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, air services, I'd argue, the community in the region is extremely well served today. So the catchment is more than served by Queenstown Airport today and for decades into the future. So a lot of our growth that you see here, so if we look at the way we were growing pre-COVID, so those slides FY15 through to FY19, we were growing very quickly at around 8.9% CAGR per annum. We don't need to be reminded on what happened to travel with COVID, but we now see ourselves in FY23 and beyond. The recovery, in fact, is looking like it's happening a bit quicker than anticipated, particularly out of Australia, which is fantastic news. And this coming summer season, I think for tourism in this part of the world, the bike trails and through into Central, we're seeing a really good demand starting to come out of North America, which is very encouraging. But when we look at that into the future, we have 3.2 million forecast passengers into Queenstown, or demand for travel into Queenstown by the end of the 10-year period. Queenstown Airport is able to service that with the existing air noise boundaries. So with the quieter Neo aircraft that Air New Zealand are operating, that Qantas has ordered, that gives us significant capacity for decades to come at Queenstown Airport. We do not believe we're going to run out of capacity. So in developing the strategic plan, I won't go through all of these, but this gives you a sense of the scale of engagement that we had right across the region and nationally to understand what the needs, expectations were from all of the various stakeholders that we need to take into account. And so that was incredibly helpful in shaping our 10-year plan. So just to wrap up, the 10-year horizon, when we look at the work that we have to do, and Mayor will leave some hard copies of the document with you for any councillors that wish to have a look. The plan is available on our website, and we really encourage people that have an interest to check it out. And we're very happy to answer any questions anyone has. But this gives you a bit of a sense. We're now moving into master planning at the airport, which is the physical representation of the plan. So we are anticipating some significant investment in the airport. We believe over the next decade, we're going to invest over $300 million in airport infrastructure at Queenstown to ensure that we're well prepared to serve the needs of the region for the next decade and well beyond. So with that, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity and welcome any questions any councillors might have.
Thank you, Glenn. Councillors.
I'll start. It's talking to listening to what I hear in the community, and that's probably hearsay, is that you have already reached capacity. So you're comfortable that we're nowhere near capacity by the look of it.
So the capacity that's available in the noise boundaries has profoundly changed in the last 5 years through the advent of Neo aircraft. We have the capacity is defined by noise boundaries, which is a planning construct. It's a mathematical formula, and we go through that process every year. The noise boundaries are 50% greater than what we, or in that region, than what we thought they were about 5 years ago with older, noisier aircraft. And things like Air New Zealand introducing the A321neo, that has 27% more seats than a 320, the existing 320, and it's quieter. So it's a bigger, quieter, cleaner burning aircraft. So Air New Zealand has 7 of those on firm order for domestic and 5 more options, and they're completely replacing their international fleet with 320 units. So there is a lot of capacity available within the noise boundaries, more than enough to service the catchment. What we will need to do, as per that reference to a big capital program to ensure that we invest in the airport, will be to ensure that the infrastructure is able to support moderate and sustainable growth into the future in the way that the community supports.
Thank you. Nigel.
What if any, does freight play in Queenstown Airport? And secondly, can you just give even a sketchy comment about the proposed terrace airport vis-a-vis Queenstown?
So the master plan that we're working through now, and one of the things we'll be inviting and seeking input on is freight and what the demand is and how we can best service that, or how airlines can best service that. Queenstown already carries quite a lot of live lobster out of Fiordland through the airport at peak times of the year, tons of it, typically up through Auckland or Christchurch and then to multiple destinations in Asia and North America. That market we think is quite well served. Clearly there's been a lot of discussion around cherries over the peak season. I've met one of the major cherry growers and said, can we work with you to facilitate charter flights in and out of the airport for freight, so small freighters that can get to Auckland or Christchurch and then connect onto the long haul services elsewhere. So we're really keen and open to work with exporters to see how we can best support that. So welcome any input, any of you or the export community from Central might be able to provide on that. We are keen to help how we can. In terms of tariffs, my personal view is, and it'll come no surprise to you, that I'm not sure there's a business case for it. It is the only business case that I can see for Terrace Airport to get up is to facilitate mass inbound tourism. So come back to the catchment is extremely well served by Queenstown Airport today. When I say the catchment, the people who live in Central, Upper Clutha and Queenstown Lakes. We are suggest blessed with an extraordinary deep airline schedule that certainly doesn't exist in an equivalent size community like New Plymouth or Nelson, where there's only turboprops domestically. So there is ample capacity for decades into the future to service the local community. I guess it's ultimately a conversation for the communities. Do they want to facilitate and enable mass inbound tourism? Because that's what it will deliver, were it to be come to life. And everyone's entitled to their view on that. All of the feedback I certainly get from our stakeholders in Queenstown Lakes and Upper Clutha, there's a real sensitivity about the scale of tourism and what's an acceptable and appropriate level.
Okay. Neil, have you had any, or you got any thoughts or had any discussions about the Karawa Gorge and the road and its ability to handle any sort of freight expansion in Queenstown? Is it seen as an issue, and have you had any luck with knocking on the land transport agency's door? Or
so I think the roading infrastructure throughout Central and Queenstown Lakes is coming under increasing pressure, and certainly within the Wakatipu Basin, it's becoming a significant issue around traffic congestion and the like. So we, in terms of the Karawa Gorge itself, we haven't actively engaged with Waka Kotahi on that. We've, to be honest, been more focused on how do we decongest the roading system and know what to do.
sure. Thanks.
Do you see a case for expanding or making more use of the Wanaka Airport facilities?
So Wanaka Airport, so I've been in this role just over a year, and there was clearly a very interesting debate that occurred between the community and QIC and the airport company 3 or 4 years ago. I think with the benefit of hindsight, we go back and have that conversation in a very different way than that which had occurred. There's no question about that. Wanaka, in the event that my view very firmly is Wanaka Airport is an excellent airport that's well located, it has a lot of capability, but that must be a decision of the QLDC who own it and the community that it serves off the Upper Clutha. It does have the capacity to be expanded in the first instance to service ATR turboprop flights to Christchurch, Wellington and the like, and that could be done. In terms of jets, the community has spoken very forcefully in recent years that they don't want to see jets at Wanaka, and I'm not here to say that they should be imposed. It must be community-led, but the airport does have the ability, should the community and the shareholder decide to in the future, to enable short-haul jet aircraft flights to say Auckland, if there was a desire to do so. But we're certainly not pushing that.
Yeah, I've got a question, a comment. Question: plans to reopen Park and Ride, are they, with the numbers coming back, is that on the agenda?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so we still have the parking facility. The challenging bit, to be honest, Mayor, is the bus service to get frequency from the car park to the terminal meant that even when the car park was full, it was essentially a break-even proposition because the bus was so expensive to run. So I think there's clearly going to be a need for it as traffic grows back. And certainly, you know, for the folk of Central and Upper Fluka who need to bring their cars to the airport, we need to make sure we've got a viable proposition there. So we're looking at what the different options are to be able to enable people to connect from the car park to and from the terminal in a way that makes commercial sense, both for the user and for us to deliver it.
Excellent. And just that figure of 30,000 people in Central by 2048, I can't wait for stats looking at that after the census, because we've gone from 20,000 to 25,000 in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
So I'm picking 2030.
Yeah,
We'll see.
but if that growth, if what you're saying is right and that growth is bigger, Queenstown won't be able to handle the roading traffic and infrastructure, let alone the airport, will it?
At the airport certainly will. The airport certainly can. It can, you know, we carry, you know, pre-COVID, we had 2.4 million passengers. And the vast majority of those are visitors to the community. We do have plenty of capacity for decades to come to support the local community. The roading infrastructure through the gorge, I don't want to opine on that.
Well, I think one of the transport meetings around about it, Franklin, was a 30-year plan and they fulfilled the numbers in 3.
Yeah.
So if that growth's going to be there like that, and
Good track going through, Stu.
Pardon?
It's good bike track going through.
All righty, thanks very much, Glenn and Sarah. Great to see you. And perhaps, you know, and we've got a new council. We know we've at least got 2 changes coming up, so we'll see you again in the not too distant future for an update.
Thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to come and meet you all, and you'll be pleased to know that in by the bag claim area very shortly, Dylan, we're going to be having what was previously showcasing Wanaka, and this winter Coronet Peak is going to be Central Otago's for the next 6 months.
Excellent.
To showcase, which is great work by Dylan and the team to make sure that we celebrate and showcase this amazing place for visitors.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Central Otago Budgeting Service, Pam Hughes. Welcome, Pam. On up.
Get the opportunity to come and talk to you on
You can sit or stand as you please.
stand because I've been told I'm too short to sit. So what we're looking at funding for is to help us with people who are struggling with internet banking. So we've been working in conjunction with REAP, and we did a session with the library earlier this year. We were travelling around the area supporting people who struggle with their internet banking. Now, with the bank getting rid of all the checks and things like that, and the bank's hours changing, that has meant that more people are having to look at going online. Now, some with REAP and that they're doing the training, which is good, but people don't like talking about their finances to somebody they don't know. And with the likes of budgeting services, we are actually trained to, and we have I suppose, an overarching reach that says that we talk to people, we get to know about their finances, and they feel comfortable talking to us, knowing that we're actually seeing what's in their bank accounts. Well, as part of our role, we see that anyway, regardless of the people that we're working with, if we're needing to help them with their finances going forward. So we've got that legal coverage, if you like. So people are quite happy to help us sit and walk alongside them to do their internet banking, as opposed to talking to somebody who's not part of budgeting, if you like. So going forward, the funding that we're looking for is to help support us to carry on with that work. And so, you know, with the rising cost of petrol and that kind of thing. But we are using the library facilities, or we have done in the past, and we've been using the hub here as Central Stories to help people. So basically that's what we're here for today. for that main role, which is key to people continuing to move forward with their finances.
Delicious touch of irony that, as you said, you were doing this to help people struggling with IT. One of our IT guys came in, which is often to help one of us who's struggling with IT. So, questions, Councillor Taylor?
Support of the banking sector provided for you guys to do this work?
We have got some funding. We've only just got funding through FinCare, which is the organisation body that we belong to, which has been given money from banks to help us help people. But that was more solely with the study link side of things, because that was a new stream that they hadn't felt that there was a need within the community. And we've been running study link several years now. We've just got all the high schools in the area. So that was the main funding for that. A lot of the banks locally, they don't seem to have the time to help support people. They had the Dora bus that came through when the checkbooks went away, but there's been not the services of sitting and working alongside individuals. And we're finding that it's the elderly as the main client base that we're working with. They'll come in and we'll work alongside them, and slowly you see progression where they get the confidence to be able to do it themselves. So that's the benefit of being able to do it one-to-one and having the time to be able to work with the people as well.
Lovely.
Must be really difficult for perhaps even elderly people or any people who can't afford computers and IT.
Yeah, so that's where you're going into the library to be able to use them, or into the hub, and also getting people to use the phones. Elderly are struggling with cell phones at the best of times, but you put an app on a phone and they don't know what to do with it. And I'm not a whiz kid with cell phones either, but being able to spend the time and not make them feel that they're silly is the key to what we do.
Well, it's crucial, isn't it? Especially banks are starting to close their doors like locally.
Well, you know, how many banks can you go down the street and say, oh, they're open now? Well, hang on a minute, they're not open today. It's not, you know, they're only open Monday or Tuesday, or they're open from 10 to 3, or, you know, that kind of thing. So unless you've got your finger on the pulse and know exactly what the hours are, it's very hard. Like if you're coming into town and think, oh, I'll go to the bank, I can't go today. You know, so yeah.
And if you have mobility issues, it's just the getting out the house and getting down there and finding the issue.
Yeah. So, and we do home visits too. So we'll go into people's homes and help support them at home.
That's fantastic.
Cheryl?
How much do you deal with assisting family members to actually help educate? I do think that, especially when you're dealing with the elderly, their fingers, you know, especially if they're dealing with small cell phones, they press the wrong buttons. I mean, do you encourage the family members to sort of, you know, participate and actually help their?
You start to get into legal situations there. You can get into elder abuse situations, unwittingly. You have to be mindful of the family makeup. And you also have to be careful of, oh, mum, that's so silly, it's so easy, you know, those sorts of things. So you're guided by your client. If I want my daughter to be able to help me, then that's fine. We'll help both of them, but you don't want to have them being pressured either. So it is a client-based thing, and it's a confidentiality thing. They may not want their family to know what their finances are like. So yeah.
So do they get you to actually do it for them? Just if you're going to see them, you have specific clients that actually can't do this?
We do have a total money management program that our committee have said that yes, we can go ahead with. We don't actively advise that we do that because that can be very time consuming. And if we do a full total money management package, then the clients can just get them to fifth with us and say no. And everything that we've worked with for them goes out the window. But we do have a total money management type program where the client sits beside us and we will show them and pay their bills for them online. So
It's kind of safer, there isn't much.
Yes. So we offer all sorts of things and we work within certain boundaries. We have to be accountable for what we do, but we also have to be mindful of the client. And if it needs to be that actually the client is in a position where they need somebody to be taking over their financial control through power of attorney, then that's a discussion we need to have as well.
I know that the library does a lot of work in that area of basically helping sections of our community pay their bills. And months in on terms of workload spikes in the library and the access to the computers because it's sections of the community don't have access to the technology.
Yeah.
Don't have the knowledge, but they're coming and using council facilities. Yeah.
I run the risk of actually asking them, they might be asked when I was going down a rabbit hole a minute ago or something else I said. But in terms of the application you've got for us today, if that's not funded in full, what does that mean? Any little bit helps?
Exactly. Hey Rob. Exam treasure. Yeah, no. We're budgeters. And
I'll cut you off.
we just make it work.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how.
That's what they do.
But we do, we make it work and we look at carpooling, we manage our workload. We've just set up a monthly session once a week, once a month down at the Roxburgh, and we have a full day of clients down there. And so the clients are not having to travel, we travel to them. So we're thinking outside the square to make our service work for the community. And if need be, we might take 2 or 3 of us in one car and have a full day and see clients if possible. We'll try, and if we're going through to Cromwell, we'll have a full day's work in Cromwell, not just for one client. And yeah.
Sorry, so when you say we, is it like volunteer assistants?
We have paid staff. We've got 4 part-time paid staff, and the hours that we don't get paid for are volunteer basically. So yeah.
One last question, Cheryl.
Like travelling, you go to the likes of Cromwell, say. Where do you work out of there? Do you go to the library or do you go to like the community house?
The community house give us free space up there, so free, we'll take it. Libraries, we've gone to the library and worked at the library up there as well. And wherever we can meet, we do, as I say, meet people at home. So we'll meet them at home. Generally, we like to meet them in a public place first and get a feel for the clients. And then when we go home, we actually get a feel for their situation as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Pam.
We can do
Very helpful for decision making later on. Oh, now we have Juanita from the school. Good, Juanita.
Hi everybody, I'm not here on behalf of Miller Street School,
No,
I'm here
yeah.
on behalf of the Dunstan Kahui Ako. And I was just going to explain, a Kahui Ako is a professional learning group that schools can opt to be part of. So there are 8 participating schools in our area, ranging from one in Ranfurly, Whamako, Colburn, Alexandra, Clyde, Miller's Flat, and it's a group that, the point of it is to try and support access resources, perhaps apply for professional learning development funding, or make connections or networks, provide opportunities that schools themselves couldn't access easily on their own. So my particular role, I work part-time, my particular role in this kahui has been to research and put together resources, work with tangata whenua to try and increase the knowledge of our educators about our local histories, in particular local Māori history, which is a recent thing because we have our new Aotearoa New Zealand Histories curriculum just come out. So that's been my role. A kahui ako, although it doesn't have an operational grant, depending on the participants, the ministry funds salaries for people such as myself. So there were 4 sort of teachers on contract to help facilitate this work. So the salary provided, but not sort of operational money. So as a culmination of this contract that I've had that's just coming to a close over the last 2 years, we are putting together an exhibition. Then we have invited all of the teachers in these schools to participate in an exhibition at Central Stories Museum in Art Gallery. And this is three reasons. First of all, to showcase students' learning. Secondly, we would like to share with the wider community some of this local history that perhaps hasn't been so readily available, particularly our Māori history. And the other part of that is we're trying to connect our young people with the resources like our museum, which we had found they hadn't been connected very well with. So we are trying to network these schools in. So we have more than 40 displays being prepared at the moment, from life-size moas to hinaki, which are traditional Māori eel traps, to models of our local historical bridges, all being prepared. We're going to go into Central Stories. We're going to have an opening night, inviting some tangata whenua special dignitaries, having a mihi whakatau, which is a formal Māori welcome. There'll be a kapa haka group there, and as part of that, part of our grant application was some kai, some food, which is the traditional way of completing an official welcome. But the main part of our application is actually to support getting our tamariki, our children, to Central Stories. So I've worked with the teachers locally in Alexandra, and they're all committed to walking these students there. But outside, we've got, most of our schools can't walk their kids there. They're going to need busing. So there are 2 schools, smaller schools, that have said, look, funding or not, we will try and get parents to get as many as we can. But we've got a lot of children outside of our area that we would really like to connect in and network with this resource. So the exhibition goes for about a week. I'm trying to schedule everyone in. And part of it, I think, is we're wanting our kids to go there, see that this resource, this museum, is important to them, and keep supporting this awareness of our local histories. Hopefully take that home to their whānau, their family at home, and get them to come and have a look too.
Excellent, thank you. Questions, councillors?
That's good.
Everything's pretty well covered, really. I look forward to seeing the exhibition. I'll walk there.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's going to be fascinating to watch. Central Health Inc. Lee Overton.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors.
Come on right up to me. Have a seat if you wish.
I'd just like to introduce some of the team that we've got here, if you can stand up. We've got Matt Fowler, who's represented from Tangaroa, Rob Roy, elected member, Joel Smith, who's elected from service providers, and Tracy, of course, over here, is our chair. I'm the deputy chair. Carolyn Tamlin from Roxburgh, so I'm able to be here, and Britta Chrisley from Cromwell. I'll take our application for funding as read, but I just want to briefly go back to how we got to the situation of having two bodies involved with Dunstan Hospital. Prior to the year 2000, late 1990s, the health board was actually going to close down Dunstan Hospital. It was pretty run down and it was going to be closed. So there were strong discussions within the district, and the outcome of those was that the health board decided they'd make the hospital buildings available for hospital services, provided that the community purchased assets and provided the assets within the hospital. And then in 1998, this council actually resolved to solve that situation, that there be two bodies, an corporate, service provider, no, sorry, get the wording right, that there be an operating company, which is Civil Otago Health Services, and the Incorporated Society of which we are. So there are some advantages in having that arrangement, in that our body represents the community. We manage and safeguard the assets within the hospital. We have to seek extra funding. Some of the funding, or most of the funding, actually comes from the rental of those assets to the operating company. One of the advantages of having our entity is that through our ability to select and appoint directors, we don't need as many as there would be if there was an elected representatives, because we can specify precisely positions we want. And in fact, we're actually cutting down the number of directors to 5, because we're trying to save costs, and we realise that 5 people can cover the specific areas of skills that are required in direction. We ourselves are also pruning our costs. We are going to have more Zoom meetings, probably 50% every second month. And so that will prune our costs somewhat. I think most of the community don't realise the involvement they have within the hospital. And it's our duty to keep them aware of that and preserve that. And that's why we exist. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you, mate. Questions, councillors? There's no one in the room that hasn't used Dunstan Hospital in recent times, or visited somebody, or been for an X-ray, or something. So we're all well familiar with what a great service the hospital provides. Finally,
I just a statement really. I just want to say that I hear over and over again what a fantastic service Dunstan provides.
Yes, I will add that, yes, rural health is certainly treated very much secondly by both political parties. We're very much on the back foot. We don't have equity with the urban hospitals. We don't have parity for wages, for example. So again, it's quite a battle that's just had to continue.
well done. All right, and our final public forum today is the Otago Goldfields Heritage Trust. Warwick Walker, welcome back, Warwick, Terry Davis, and Oti. Can I get through for you this table, Warwick? It's been a while. You're back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Mayor and councillors, I'm Warren Walker, recently elected as chair of the Otago Goldfields Heritage Trust. And with me, we've got our secretary, Terry Davis, and treasurer, Ed Hopwood. Thank you for receiving our request for some funding. It's a very unusual event that this has occurred and that we're here today. But thank you very much for considering it. I'll hand over to Terry to talk.
Thanks, Warwick. I prefer to talk while standing. I'll just give you a quick rundown of the Goldfields Heritage Trust, some of the stuff that we do, and the predicament we've found ourselves in and why we're here now. So, Goldfields Heritage Trust has had 33 years of investment in heritage in Central Otago, and that investment is directly into the tourism sector. We're talking about signage around heritage areas, brochures, restoration, looking after the places that a lot of those images are used quite widely to promote Central Otago. We've had 30 years of cavalcades. Now the cavalcade actually started, it was Fleur O'Sullivan and a few others from the Goldfields Heritage Trust started the cavalcade with the express purpose of putting some cash back into the Central Otago communities. If you think back to the very early 1990s, things were pretty depressed, and there were some small communities who, were very thankful for a wee boost of 10 grand here, 15 grand back in those days. These days, the cavalcade host towns, the last few host towns have cleared between 30 and 50,000 net profit. The cavalcade in total, is between 1.5 million into Central Otago every year. So it's really significant. The vast majority of that money, it's in Central Otago. There's huge chunks of that money go directly to community groups, to the Lions, to schools, to groups doing fundraising. So that's what we've been traditionally. These days, we're doing a heritage site review. We've been doing that for 3 years, and we've still got external funding. Fortunately, we've got a debt quite good here who is normally really good at raising funds. 100,000 to 200,000 a year. She brings in for different projects that we're working on that totally benefit Central Otago. For example, she's also got us the World Gold Panning Champs coming in 2026, New Zealand. Central Otago will definitely benefit from that. 400 odd keen gold panners for a week and their friends. There's a lot of stuff they're up to. The reason we can do it, we've been very fortunate, we've had the cavalcade, and the cavalcade brings in enough money to pay wages. I did 9 on 30 hours a week. Earlier this year, we had to cancel the cavalcade. And cancelling the cavalcade put us in the hole by about $57,000. So the economic, the accounts that you've got with our application, that was the previous years, we were still able to run the cavalcade. This year's accounts, if you look at them, $56,000 deficit. What that means is our money's running out. This month, I'm on half wages. Next month, it could be on half wages. So things, we are at financial risk, and there's a lot of good stuff we have done and that we want to carry on doing. And look, we're really passionate about what we do. And luckily, I've got a wife who's teaching part-time, so I can go, 1 month, she's okay with that. If I have to keep going back and say, it might just be another month or two. No, things are getting tough as they've been. As because of COVID, it was unprecedented. We were very lucky. We got away with it in 2021, but 2022 we got smashed. So that's it really. We're applying for this fund to help us deliver the best cavalcade we can. The cavalcade in some degree will go ahead, but to really make it as good as it can be, which we want it to be for Miller's Flat, they're putting in a new playground down there for the kids, so the profit that they make is going towards that. But it's just a massive boost to the whole area, the cavalcade. We need this to carry on, and yeah, the $10,000 would be very much appreciated. just give us that security.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, questions?
Was talk that the cavalcades weren't going to continue in that corner, that's not right.
No.
I don't trust talks, Stu, you know that.
To be honest, there's been talk about the cavalcade not continuing for as long as I've been running the cavalcade, since 2010. And if you talk to cavalcaders, there's no way it's going to stop because they're just
There was not a movement to look taken to the North Island.
no.
Not to get asked to.
Yeah.
That was actually a April Fool's joke we put on our Facebook page. Next cavalcade is
Continental. But I think they're a great thing. I've been involved in for a long, long time, and schools do the run out there, and it gives a lot of money. It's a shame that you're running such a tight budget and keep more of it for yourself. Because but no, it's a great thing.
It was all, if you hear Fleur Sullivan speak, and she speaks in my ear a bit, and she's like, this was all about raising money for Central Otago towns. It's all about giving back, giving back, giving back, giving back. And that's all we ever do is give back. And what we do is like the OGHT doesn't make a huge profit, and what skinny profit we do make goes straight into like Bannockburn sluicings. We fixed all that up nice and it got landmark status and
go straight back into
we've got to do some repair work at the Hobson's Gorge.
Anyway, you're muddying the waters,
But yeah, so
we need to make sure the cavalcade runs good.
Goes in bed. Yeah.
Terry, I've got a question, because it is a great and fantastic event, there's no doubt about that. But in terms of sustainability, why isn't some of the funds that when it's profitable not put back for future events and held?
Yeah.
Or return to yourselves for other projects rather than, I understand that, small communities are looking for new playgrounds and different things and it's a great outcome. But I can't help thinking that if you have to start from zero every time, that's not necessarily sustainable, is it?
No, it's not. And so traditionally, it was a very close budget and the culture around OGHT was to not make a profit. We're not here to make a profit, we're here to make a profit for everybody else. Since Odette's come along, about 5 years ago, she's like, hold up, we need to be making some profit here for ourselves. And we actually did for a few years.
Yeah.
If you look at the economic report, the profit was between a 1,000 loss and a 3,000 gain. Odette, in more recent times, we have made profits, but then this year we invested in some capital, didn't we?
Yeah, so of course, thank goodness the airport spoke first about all the people coming back into Central Otago and how the steady climb is going. So of course we've opened more trails with mountain biking, e-biking, running and walking, which has expanded the cavalcades. Now the cavalcade is like this, now it's going like that. We're gaining again.
So probably spent 10 grand.
So of course we've had to reinvest in reinventing the wheels, the cart wheel. And so we've put quite a bit of the surplus that we had into that. I've got to pick up something like 20 runners from the airport from Queenstown, and I think 15 cyclists, which is not a normal thing we do, but we've just had to hire vans and buy showers.
Yeah.
The last people want showers.
I guess last year was difficult and there was extra costs involved with the whole, just as we got into the cavalcade, we went into level 2, whatever, which meant the trails were able to go, but the host town wasn't. And the trails were able to go, but you had to have extra precautions around them. So we opened the checkbooks, we're already going, like, well, we'll make sure we still hold you. And first of all, our goal, because you've been really good since you started at making more of a profit, but 2021 was impacted by COVID, 2022. I think normally we're looking at a 10 to 20 a year.
So we did have some reserves, but it wasn't enough. It's not enough to cover a huge loss after cancelling after 11 months.
Yeah.
And investing into Miller's Flag And that's 11 months worth of wages and everything. And that's where it was. And it's just, the OGHT has always had that little surplus there, but it hasn't been anything over $30,000. And I have over the last few years gone, right, I've taken it from 20 to 30 and been trying to build it back up to something like 50. But then it's very hard when I go to funding to do like the bank roof sluicings, the heritage site review, all these other projects we've got, and they're going to go, well, why is that money there? And I'm like, well, that's our insurance, because there is no insurance. It's just been a bit of a nightmare. And also applying for wages for the cavalcade, like there is other funding we can get, but of course they look at the cavalcade as an event and they go, no, we'll give you some wages to help with the heritage site review, or I'll give you some wages to help do that project, but not for the cavalcade, because it's an event. Yes, and there's no insurance for the event. Well, our insurance went from if we got event insurance, $2,000 to $8,500,
And the insurance doesn't cover
pandemics.
Right.
Lonely then, Neil, then we'll have to draw it to a close.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say how much I admire passion and how you can draw the community out to do wonderful things. And the fact that you've got the gold penning, the World Gold Penning Championships here is just amazing for Central Otago. And you kind of answered my question, because I went to a funding clinic recently and the gaming trust will provide 6 months out of 12 in wages. And I wondered if you'd looked into that, because you, in so many areas, they would approach hotels in all those areas to combine funds. I'm sure they'd understand.
Oh yeah, but they've gone, they hands off the cavalcade, so I can get some of our wages, but that's why we're on half wage. But it's the cavalcade, and 90% of all the money we actually spend stays in Otago. Like Bronwyn and Muller, we still use them. Everybody's like, oh, you can do cheaper, but I'm like, we keep these Otago businesses going.
I was talking aside from the cavalcade, just feeling sorry for you losing your wages.
Yeah.
So I guess you could turn around and say, we're going to organise the host town stuff, and that would give you the surplus, because what you're doing at the moment is the host town committee moves from place to place for each one, and that community gets the benefit of it.
Yes.
You could, as a trust, say, we're going to charge you a royalty for running that and take something off the top, but you're not doing that.
Do that to your winning section.
No. Well, no, I'm just making sure that, but there's an option, but all that is
We do need to change our model. We do need to modernise and change our model and try and get a better surplus going forward. I think it's traditionally, like I was looking through minutes from the 90s, I was looking for some bit of information about DOC, and DOC will come into us for money. You know, only 15, 20 years ago, to do projects and things like this. And yeah, it is, we do need to, nobody ever foresaw this. We would have been ticking away nicely for 28 years.
Oh, we would have been fine. We would have had reserves, and our reserves would have been growing if it wasn't for
All right. Thank you very much, team. Greatly appreciate the work you put in. Our schedule at the moment puts the district-wide grant applications at 12:40, but already half an hour behind, so who knows where it might be, but it's not going to be straight away anyway, but it will be today. And it's part of online if you want to watch it. Indeed, you can stay until then if you so desire. No?
Well, Cavalcade 23 opens on Friday, and I've got
Might have a thing or two to do.
registration.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Greatly
See you
appreciate it.
tomorrow anyway. You're going to Blast.
Oh, yeah, I am. Yep, I'll see you there.
I'll come to
Righty ho. Right, first thing, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of 24th.
I'll move.
Thank you. Seconded.
Yep.
Shirley, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. You've all been here long enough to know what I'm going to say, so I'm not going to say it, but remember it. We now move to economic development and community facilities. This is my last chance this year not to crash into people's parties. So Stephen, that was terrible facts. Stephen, it's your paper.
You jumped across that quick, I'm really looking where the hell it is. Anyway, 22.7.2, page 20. And the speaker is. Stephen.
Give us then.
Oh, Stephen. Stephen, lucky I got him. So I think two, yeah. Welcome.
Hi everyone, so I'm presenting this on behalf of Stephanie MacArthur,
Yeah.
our statutory property officer. Unfortunately, she's away sick today. So I'll just give you through a summary. I trust that you've already received the report. So this purpose of this report is to consider granting a lease over part of section 5 East Menehir Care settlement being part of the Alexandra Aerodrome Reserve to the Clyde Pony Club. So the option which has been recommended is that we do go ahead and grant a lease to them for 3 years with 2 rights of renewal for another further 3 years. The reason it could have been longer, but the reason why we've kept it shorter is to ensure that the club can meet the financial obligation of taking this piece of land on. The rental is in accordance with the council's licensing and community licensing and licensing policy, and there's going to be a cancellation clause of 6 months, so that's in accordance with the Airport Securities Act. The advantages of doing this is that the Clyde Pony Club's occupation of the land will be legalised and their right of access secured. So they currently actually have cross-country renting equipment on the land, and it cost them approximately $25,000 to put it there. And it was previously, the land I could see was previously leased for grazing, and the grazing would allow that to happen on the land. So this is just securing that access. A small income will be generated for the land. Makes use of land not currently required for airport purposes, and the land will be maintained, and it is consistent with the council's community licensing and licensing policy and the Airport Securities Act. Is there any questions?
Martin, I'm quite happy to move the recommendations.
That wasn't the question. That wasn't the question.
Yeah, I got one.
Yes, thank you.
So the figure 1 of the report is the total area available that was previously leased, and the lease to the pony club is the one in red, which is figure 2, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Subsection. And the balance, no, I was just going to mention, because I did raise this earlier on when it was first brought up, that the balance will be maintained by the area line. Is that correct?
I haven't been party with those conversations, I'm afraid, but
It was just something I raised, because you've got a piece of land in there, potentially it's fire risk and who's maintaining it, but I read in there that it will be maintained.
yes, if you may be please within the team to maybe go out there for an expression of interest to graze that land, because obviously it's been grazed before, but I can definitely come back and confirm that if you'd like me to.
I think that would be useful to know that.
Yeah, sure. Do that for the team.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, you're in charge. Jeez.
It lasted for 30 seconds.
25.
I'm not opposed to what's being recommended here, but I just would like to understand the financial side of it. So 37 hectares has got a value, the grazing lease. It'd be interesting to know what that is, so we just understand what the pony club is paying as against a commercial proposition, just for context, really.
Unfortunately, I don't have that information to hand, but again, I can find that out for you. Yeah, I wasn't a part of the.
Really completes the picture of what.
Okay.
So we know what we're doing.
And there was a lease prior to that, prior to the pony club.
Yeah, I'm not opposed, but we should understand what we're doing.
Yeah, okay.
From a financial point of view, I believe.
So maybe just to understand that better, the question would be, is there any water on this land, or is there any irrigation available, or is it dry land? I suspect
Very
it's
dry land, something that we
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm suspecting it's dry.
I think
I suspect it's dry land, so I guess that its value from a grazing perspective will be limited, but you asked the question why.
It'll probably have troughs on it, I'd say.
Yes, that's about it.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there may be no commercial work, just.
That's what I was trying to highlight. I think on the low side, the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that information.
So reasonably sized plot.
Yeah.
All right, nothing further? Yeah. So, nothing further? One?
I'm not just happy to second it.
Oh, so Martin's moved it, Lonely second. Everyone happy? All in favour? Against, carried.
Brilliant, and I'll come back to you on those couple of points.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Stephen.
And back to you, Mr. Mayor.
And to Stu and try my very hardest to shut up.
Good luck.
2.7.3, Quinton, stopping at Mary Road, Gully Road. Reports we can do.
Good morning. I'll take the report as have been read. So at the meeting of the 6th of September 2022, the Vincent Community Board considered a proposal to stop an unformed portion of Omeo Gully Road, being approximately 9,113 square metres. So considerations to the decision were around the roading network, where the road reserve bordering the applicant's property is approximately 60 metres wide, and the proposed stopping would leave a 20 metre wide carriageway, and this is the maximum width carriageway of our existing roading network for that style of road, and all roads have a maximum of 20 metres, so there's no deemed effect. Utility network, so Aurora Energy confirmed that there are no Aurora assets on the section of land, and the Owensville Irrigation Company have a water race running through the applicant's property. The race runs through a section of the road which the applicants propose to stop. So Owensville Irrigation Company have confirmed they support the proposed stopping on the following basis that there is an easement listed. So on consideration, the board agreed to the proposal on the basis the applicants paying all costs, including the purchase of the valuation, the land being amalgamated with the existing record of title, and an easement in gross in favour and approved by Owensville Irrigation Company being registered in the new record of title, and the final survey plan being approved by the Chief Executive Officer. So I'll hand back.
Any questions?
I just had one, just looking at the map, the aerial photo and the kind of layout photo on page 30, the road's not actually in the road. Is that how I see it?
So I don't have that map on it. That will be in the report.
So just having,
Sorry.
it's only something I've picked up now. So if you look at the map on the bottom of page 30, so it shows Omeo Gully Road is running down here.
Yeah.
With the boundary here. But then when you go to the aerial photo, which may or not be accurate, there's the black line and the road's on the other side of it.
I'd say the road's not formed and that's their driveway.
Yeah.
Correct. And so it's an unformed driveway.
The whole way through.
Through that
So
section.
the driveway is not off the road, it's.
And those types of situations would be picked up through a subdivision or a development where it would either be relocated or there would be a movement of to encompass that section.
Perfect. No, just to clarify, none of it's formed. Thank you.
Happy to move.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Mark, second by Lindley. All those in favour?
Aye.
Next one. Now, we've got all the pages and stuff here, but
There's water to that one.
page 37, 22.7.4, revocation of stopping. Terrace Cromwell, Quinton again, to get on to my page 37.
Well, thank you. I'll take the report as it's been read. So at the meeting of 2nd August 2022, the Cromwell Community Board considered a proposal to stop approximately 1,640 square metres of Malmore Terrace. The purpose of the road stopping is to enable the land to be stopped and amalgamated with the record of title that contains the Cromwell Memorial Hall and car park. Amalgamating the land with the record of title would maximise the design options and overall development of the Cromwell Memorial and Event Centre. So an overview of the stopping is provided in the report in figure 1. So the recommendation to council is to approve the proposal to stop the unformed portion of Malmore Terrace, and that all costs paid from the Memorial Hall, all costs being paid from the Memorial Hall and Event Centre project budget. This is approximately $11,000 is listed in table 1. And the land being amalgamated with the whole record of title at nil consideration. An easement in gross in favour of and approved by Aurora Energy Limited being registered on the new record of title, and the final survey plan being approved by the Chief Executive Officer. I'll hand back to the Chief for any questions.
Yeah, this just closes the loop. It's already been to the council about the payment of it.
Yeah.
So it came as that paper first, and then went back to the board to actually make the formal approval. We come back to here. So let's just close the loop. So that's why you said the board rings a bell.
Yeah.
I'll move.
Well, before I heard it first. It's not last meeting to go ahead. recommended by Neil, seconded by Stephen. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Stu. Nigel?
Thank you, Mayor. Item 22.7.5, proposed changes to the charges of tyre disposal at Council's transfer station. And we have Lauren.
Yeah, hi. So I just like to take a moment to introduce Lauren Hunter. Lauren is our new solid waste team leader. So come on board to support us in the waste space, and with the new rollout of the contract and everything like that, we'll ultimately keep her busy.
Good, welcome.
So talking to the report, I take the report as it's been read. So large quantities of tyres come through council's transfer stations for disposal to landfill each year. Following the setting of council fees and charges for this financial year, we were advised that the price to dispose of tyres through Victoria Flats was going to increase by approximately $150 plus GST per tonne to cover baling and export costs. This increase is not reflected in the current fees and charges as a result. So working and looking at some alternative options, Tyre Collection Services Limited was identified as an option, and we approached them for details on the end of life tyre recycling scheme. So Tyre Collection Services advised council that other organisations within Central Otago District utilise their services, so they do already travel through the district on a weekly basis. So removing transport to Victoria Flats landfill for when then it is on sent again would reduce the distances that tyres are travelling from the Central Otago District, which again supports our reduction in our carbon emissions. So while an increase is required to the proposed fees and charges for tyre disposal, working with TCS is less than the increase of $150 GST per tonne and sending them through Victoria Flats landfill. So, and the proposed increase in fees and charges directly relates to the increase required to cover the recycling costs. It's a user pays service. So from the table in the report, you can see that the current transfer station fee for is $5 per car. That's moving to $6 with an additional charge if there's still a room on that. There's actually a reduction for 4x4 small truck tyres, 10 and 20 with rims, and the rest are listed there. And this service also enables us to accept tractor and loader tyres as well. So I'll hand back to you for any questions.
So this seems pretty straightforward. Questions?
Where it says that tractor loader were not accepted and now looking that they will be proposed to be accepted, what did they used to do?
So it's only this, so they were again just being stopped. I believe at Victoria's Flats landfill and were advised that they couldn't be accepted, and I think it's around potentially a size thing, but through TCS collecting locally at our transfer stations, we can offer collection service for those. But I think largely it was managed with tractor and loader tyres. They were managed more on a commercial basis. So we didn't see a lot of them through our transfer stations anyway.
I'll get them back here now. I'll get them back here. Yeah, so blind, get that some back.
And then you just stockpile it in the farm somewhere.
So, you say.
No one recycled.
I do note that the previous outlandish fee of $22 was ridiculous for a four-wheel drive small truck, especially when I'm going to go and look at your flash kick-ass Ford Falcon and look at my four-wheel drive and say those tyres are exactly the same size. The speed might be slightly different, but the tyres are the same size, so I'm still not convinced that the ridiculous to 4 holes, but it's better than what it was, so. Well, no, just, you know, the automatic thing, the four-wheel drive thing is bad, cost more than the same size as a car and as a car tyre.
It was on an average weight basis. So the average weight of a 4x4 small truck tyre by waste to the average car tyre.
That helps.
About 8 years ago, I think the product stewardship scheme, we reacted to that because tyres was one of the very first items.
Yeah, so the product stewardship scheme, so that's where it enables companies like TCS to do recycling. So when we say that they're heading to Victoria Flats landfill, they're bundled, baled and recycled, not disposed of to landfill.
So we're paying for the disposal of these through the stewardship scheme when we purchase tyres. Where does that
money go?
So it's not, so we don't see that through. I think that's around supporting the recyclers and end of life as opposed to, yeah, so it's a user pays service at our transfer station in terms of, there's a cost to recycle those tyres.
Okay.
And we pass that cost on. To the customers.
So the company concerned here is servicing boat repairs and tiling and things like that. That's when they're coming through here quite regularly. Those companies are collecting the
Stewardship.
fee, and that is the cost that passing, that they're using to pay for the recycling. They're not in a position to collect that fee, so we're paying for it directly through user charges.
Just checking. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Further questions?
With that.
Thanks, Shirley. So did you move, Shirley?
Yes, I did.
And
Yeah.
Taylor, any further questions?
Aye. No, sorry.
No further questions. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, thank you. 22.7.6, update to fees and charges terminology for waste services.
So council's transfer stations offer a drop-off service to customers at $16.50 for the degassing fee for appliances. So this fee covers the costs incurred by council to have a professional company specialising in degassing come and using the correct equipment remove any harmful gases from those appliances. As a result of the wording in our fees and charges, some customers are choosing to degas their old appliances at home to avoid this fee. This at-home degassing becomes extremely difficult for the transfer station operators to contest, as the appliances have technically been degassed. However, this has not been completed through the correct process or with the correct equipment. This has created some tension between transfer station staff and customers. So the impacts on the environment and individuals performing at-home degassing is of concern, and the gases contained within, for example, fridges is highly dangerous and should not be released into the atmosphere. So the recommendation is to replace the term degassing with the term disposal to ensure that all customers pay for the disposal of fridges where the at-home degassing procedures have been conducted. It also ensures that the appliances are checked and any residual gas is captured if an instance of, say, cut pipes is found.
Can I have a comment, right?
Yes, please.
I'd say this is a no-brainer. Well done. And I'll head to the move.
Positive news in this last meeting.
Further questions? Everyone happy? So we move the recommendations A and B. We have a second list. Please second it. Neil. So move. Stephen. Second, Neil. Any further questions? All in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move now to sustainable practices portfolio.
We're now running ahead of schedule.
Cool, thank you. I'll take the report as it's been read. So this is a report for information. So this report relates to year 2 of the program, Toitu Carbon Reduced program, covering the period from 1 July 2020 to 30th of June 2021. So we're slightly behind with reporting. So data collection and verification is currently underway for the next reporting period, 1 July 2021 to 30th of June 2022, and will be reported to council early 23. So year 2 saw a 2,289 tonne of carbon dioxide equivalent, TCO2e, reduction in overall emissions, representing a 17% reduction from the 2019 baseline. The reduction has been driven by factors relative to the period rather than necessarily systematic changes that will sustain ongoing reductions. The 2 primary factors reducing emissions in this period were some temporary behavioural changes as a result of COVID-19 lockdowns, particularly visible in transport emissions, and a change in methodology for calculating waste emissions. So one of the recommendations we had through our audit of our first report was around undertaking a SWOT analysis on all the waste that we as a district send to landfill to help define what those products are and assign individual emissions to those range of products. So we have done that, and as a result, that has led to a significant reduction in emissions in the waste space. So the other emissions across the years were relatively and that's around the fact that the major reductions for the key projects are listed in our emissions management reduction plan are yet to come. For example, the coal-fired boiler replacement at this, we'll be seeing that year 4. The introduction of our organics curbside collection starting 1 July 2023, that will be year 5. Cromwell Pool, again, while that project is completed, and same with the boiler, is we need a year of not using that, not creating those emissions to then be able to report on it. I'll hand back to the chair for any questions.
Questions, Taylor, then Stu.
Page 89, appendix 1, detailed greenhouse gas inventory. A line there, leakage of refrigerants. I just wondered what specifically that related to, if we know.
Yep, so any refrigerants, so every one of our heat pumps across all our buildings, anywhere where we have a heat pump, if there's been a top up of refrigerant gas or anything as a result, if your heat pump's not working at home, you might have someone come and have a look and capture and regas.
Yeah.
That's that. So every heat pump.
Just heat pumps pretty much.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. So when we lose 3 waters, we're going to lose a fair bit of our pollutant
Correct.
component. Still do that. And someone has a problem. Yeah. Basically.
Just given that you guys are a little bit behind with your reporting, is that going to be a flow-on effect for the reporting coming out?
No, so that reason was the change of, as a result of the change of our electricity contract and the ability for Contact to invoice us reliable data. So we've been working with Contact and we received we were about 12 months late with that data in detail, and we have, I believe, all of our data now for last year should be available, and we're working through that process. And then there's an audit timeline with towards it as well.
Challenge.
On page 56, I've got 3 questions. So with regard to the updates to heating the Cromwell Pool, for years, as long as I can remember, there's been talk about putting solar panels on the roof of the swimming pool there. Is that still in the offing to heat, to make both electricity and to heat the domestic water, not the pool water, the shower?
Right. So one of our emissions management reduction plan projects is to do more of a holistic look at solar. So solar technology is getting better and better.
Yes.
So understanding we have, as an organisation, a lot of available roof area in a lot of places. So we'll be looking at that, but on a more holistic basis in terms of both for sale back to the grid for lighting and everything, and particularly buildings like this and other instances as well where there's big roofs. So that's going to be more of a holistic project as outlined in the reduction plan.
Right. Thank you. And the second questions regarding to roading and the street lighting.
Yep.
Does technology exist to turn lights on only when needed, rather than having them going right through the night when no car, no person, nothing actually passes by? Does that technology exist?
Potentially, but I think from a safety, the risk is it doesn't come on. What we are currently doing is we're working through with our energy retailer around dimming profiles. So up until very recently, there was no recognition of the ability to dim lights, particularly come midnight. The lights don't need to be as bright through to 4 AM type situation. So we're working with our energy retailer now to get the dimming profiles loaded and see the benefit of dimming the lights.
I've got a light opposite me. I don't have to turn on my lounge light. So the street light comes on.
It's not very different.
Half the house is black. Yeah.
But that's not because of the lighting.
Neil.
I was just going to make an observation to Shirley's question, is that when the board approved the using the water supply to take the heat out of the water, the question about solar panels was something that could have been done then, but for the reason that QP said about the bigger picture view.
Yeah.
So we've got some savings by taking this and things out of the water in the first place. We'll try, but,
It doesn't mean to say it's.
No, that's what I said, but, no, that's what I just said. Just that as an option for the future that was talked about because of the holistic side of it and saying, well, is the problem swimming pool the best place to start with that? And it probably isn't. The best place to start with.
Maybe the new wall will be. Thank you.
That's nice.
Yeah,
I'll move. Nigel will move. I'll second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. That's QP.
Thank you.
Now we move on to page 103 and the policy renewal. Welcome, Alice.
Tēnā koe. Nā mihi o te wā ki o tātou katoa, unfortunately at the last meeting of the term. We're seeking to renew two policies today, the protected disclosures whistleblowing policy for 3 years and the risk management policy for 1. Both policies have undergone a soft review process that includes a review with the operational staff and the running of work using the policy, a check of the legislation, and what we call a strategic scan, which is really looking at other councils' operations and presenting news stories of note. We've also taken both of these policies to audit and risk. Due to timeframes, we took them yesterday, so we have to speak verbally to their changes with apologies, and then we put them into the report as well. And Kirsten will talk through the protected disclosures policy first, and then I'll speak to risk management.
Ko Kirsten Adams, tako ingoa, and I'm the People and Culture Advisor for CODC. So obviously I'm here today to provide you a bit of an update on the protected disclosures policy. So the protected disclosures policy facilitates the disclosure and investigation of serious wrongdoing in the workplace and provides protection for employees and other workers who report concerns. So the policy itself that you see on page 108 of your agenda is in place and at CODC, and it establishes a framework by which wrongdoing may be reported and the subsequent protections that are afforded to the disclosure. Now, this policy is applicable to CODC employees and elected members as well. So as you're aware, the review has taken place and it was presented to the Audit and Risk Committee yesterday. It was recommended to pass by the Audit and Risk Committee, but there were some alterations to go into the policy. So they requested that we add in that the support was an offer of support and that it will be up to the individual whether they require the risk support or not, and that the time frame of the support was to be offered as soon as the disclosure was received. You can see that the other changes that were made were that we added an appendix to the policy, and Audit and Risk have approved this to move to a 3-year review cycle. Are there any, I'll hand it back to the chair for any questions.
I'll just run through risk management first, sorry, that's okay. So the risk management policy has been in place for several years now. It's reviewed annually. We recommended to Audit and Risk that it be passed and renewed for another 12-month period with no changes except to update the references to the international standard from the 2009 version to the 2018. And we recommended that the focus for the year ahead for this policy was to look at the ongoing feedback loop between experiences with risk and the revision of the policy. Audit and Risk have agreed with that approach and asked to add a further work stream for the year ahead. That's to add a risk appetite statement to clarify the level of risk that council is willing to accept, who has the authority to set that level and how it is adjusted. So that work stream will take place this year and be put into the next review. And we also will clarify the scope that it doesn't apply to elected members.
I just had a question around the whistleblowers policy, page 111, where it talks about the Ombudsman Protected Disclosures Act 2000 allows for the Ombudsman to receive complaints. Is there a similar provision in the updated 2022 Act? Does that need to be changed or is it still applicable?
That is a SNEAK where we have not updated 2000 to 2022.
Thank you. And then I have another question on the other policy, if possible.
Yep.
That was under page 121, talking about our risk and procurement manager.
That portfolio will not be held by the general manager of business support. That will be Saskia. We can update the reference
and I know we've had some difficulties in sourcing a procurement manager. I just wondered where that was at.
So through the chair, what we're trying is we're going to use that Gabby's resource to bring in extra accounting resource. So what happened, the previous general manager, approximately 40% of her time was strategic finance. So we are making a few changes, given that I'm a chartered accountant. So I'm taking on, as part of that 40%, I'm going to take on procurement. And then what we'll do with the accounting team is the rest of the risk and procurement portfolio, such as insurance and whatnot, will be divvied up amongst the team. So I will take on the function. Yeah.
Sure.
On page 110, the last point before the bullet point protections is about in the event of a report is made and the complainant falls short of serious wrongdoings. I'm concerned with the next bit, the protections under the policy may not be available. And to me, that would discourage anybody from making a complaint. If they had a suspicion and it didn't bear out, then they would be vulnerable by not being protected if I read it wrong.
So it's in the bottom of page 110?
110, yep. Just before protections, under reporting. 5 bullet points, it's a 5th bullet point.
Yeah, I believe this one here is worded like that. The last scope for vexatious complaints, essentially to fall outside of it. We can certainly adjust the
Yeah, because I would hate to think that people suspected some behaviour but felt if they weren't going to be protected, if it was actually not proven, but there was something going on, so it didn't come under the, it wasn't serious enough, but it still was a wrongdoing, and they're still vulnerable. Thank you.
I suspect the best way to approach that is to pass it on. And that will change that in the recommendation. Just to note, I believe it's taking up the line, the protections under the policy may not be available, because all of those protections would still be available under our people and culture team, so it won't make a huge change.
Just need to change the wording.
Yeah. And just say, change the wording under reporting on page 110.
Thank you.
Okay, you're comfortable with that? I'm just wondering if that's related back to the Act and we might be taking something out there.
No, we're sitting just outside of the Act here. So this is the area where the old policy didn't have as much detail and protections available from our team. The protections we've allowed for there are basically a support person, people and culture, EAP, so they're all standard support.
So we can do more. Yeah. Any other questions? Well spotted, Sharon. Any other questions? Have you got that?
Yeah. So I changed to be adopts updated protected disclosures whistleblower policy for a period of 3 years with an annual review process, with a change to the wording for reporting on page 110 of the agenda.
That should cover it. We all know what we've talked about. You've got what it is. Okay.
And then just add the C just with the units. That's the
updated protected disclosures policy was updated as of yesterday, so that updated word covers that. We don't. Yep.
You couldn't update it yesterday. You couldn't approve it.
No, we couldn't approve it, but the updated. That's the only update we've had, so you know that that is going to cover all the rest. So we don't need to clarify that any further. Okay, with those that Wayne's just read, I'll move A, B, and C. Sweet. Thank you, Stephen. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Very good. Thank you. Greatly appreciated. We'll adjourn for lunch. Now, I think.
Yeah, lunch is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could do your mayor's report and all the other stuff, but use the 10 minutes and then keep things on schedule. Yeah, for people watching, perhaps. I don't know. No,
No, what I'm gonna do is put us,
okay.
because, yeah, we're on a meeting.
We've got to go on to lunch.
No, we'll be back at 12:30.
Oh, right.
I see Neil's point. We might, what we'll do is we'll come back at 12:30 with the mayor's report, so that we're firing off the grant applications at the same time as they were scheduled.
Yeah, same result.
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll adjourn for lunch.
Right. I need that,
Did you get your Kentucky fries?